So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create a very basic site on Revit using an image that I've pulled from the internet. So if I go to the ground floor of my floor plans, and if I go to insert image, and I need to find the image that I'm going to use. So this is an image that I've taken and I've modified it slightly so that I know exactly how big this image is. It is 150 meters wide in real life, so this section, if you like, would be 150 meters wide. So I get this image here, and if I come over here to my properties tab, I've got an option here to lock the proportions of my image first, make sure I've got that ticked, and if I make this 150 meters and click apply, this will take a few moments to render up, but what I end up with is a image here of my thing in real life. So what's a meter here is a meter in real life. On this image I have a few spot heights, so you can see one there is 8 meters, 8 meters, 8 meters, 7 meters, 8.5. so it's kind of gently sloping from a high point here to a low point here. You've got rail tracks coming along here, and here you've got a river which will naturally be quite a bit lower. You've got trees and foliage, and you've got buildings dotted throughout. Some of these buildings will be buildings that we will build and import into the drawing at a later point, and some of these, like say up here, these houses, or down here, they're not too important, so what we will do is we'll add them as a conceptual mass. We want to show that there is a building there, but that they're not necessarily important to what we're doing. So first things first, we're going to go to massing and site. So with this Toposurface, which, you know, ideally it would be great to have loads of these at regular intervals, but for the image that I've got here, what we're going to do is just going to be a pretty basic image. Now, we won't be able to see this Toposurface until we go to a 3D view, but for what we're doing now, you're just going to have to trust that this works. So we're going to put in a Toposurface, and we will be able to select points. So if we go to point or place point, and we've got an elevation, so if I select an elevation of 7 meters for the first point, and I come along and I hover over my 7 meter spot height. I've also got an 8 meter spot height, 8.0, and I can select that, and that, and I've got an 8.5 meter here as well, 8.5 meter, and I can select that point. Okay, and actually I'm just after realizing I made a mistake. So if I actually come over here to my project browser to the 3D view, you'll notice here where if I look in from the right, I've got a very high image here, where, you know, these are 7 or 8, and then this is 8.5 meters, whereas this is in millimeters. So what I need to do is actually choose these points and edit them. Okay, so this point here is, if I select on it, it's 7. It's actually meant to be 7,000. This one is 8,000. As is this one, and you'll actually see the contours here updating as we go along. 8,000 and 8,000. So actually we've got a pretty simple and basic shape here, but you can see the those topo images here. So those are the points that we know of in the middle of the image. We've got a 7, an 8, 8, 8, and an 8.5. It's also a good idea to include the corners. Now we don't actually have a rough exact dimension, so I'm going to make this maybe 9, 8, 8, and maybe 7 here, so that it's a bit lower in this bottom region and a bit higher up here. So back over to modify, place point. So this is going to be 8,000. Another point, 8,000, and actually maybe I might want to make this one 7.5 or 7,500 rather. Select down here and down here. So I've just picked some random dimensions there. Obviously it would be better if I knew exactly what they were, but these are just some spot height elevations that we've got roughly in place. And if we come along over here to our 3D view, we end up with a surface. So what you've got is your, you can just about kind of see it. It's a fairly flat landscape in this case. There's not actually much of a difference. There's a meter height over 150 meters, so like there's probably about 1 or 2 degrees there in actual difference, 3, 4 maybe. But that's our surface there. Okay, so that's the surface, and from here then we can start to work on creating things like conceptual mass for the buildings that we're not going to be using. We can cut away parts that we don't need, that kind of stuff. Okay, if you want to show the contour intervals maybe a little bit closer together, so currently they're here at a meter, maybe you might want them at 100, and then that way you can see the contours a bit more lifelike. Okay, so and like I said, the more spot points in that you put in, the closer it'll get to reality. But that's just a rough conceptual